This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon. Thank you for all that have joined us. Welcome to the Healthy Happens Here webinar series, Women's Nutrition and Physical Activity for Healthy Lifestyles. I am Candace Schottenlohr, a health educator with the Community Engagement Team here at the Florida Department of Health in Miami-Dade County. I also have my colleagues Brianna McDaniel and Robert Ward from the Community Engagement Team, who are also helping assist with the technology piece of this webinar, our chat box, and our Q&A discussion later on. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add them to the chat box. We'll be monitoring them. And just a few other reminders, we do have the meeting recorded because we'll also share this on our consortium website. And you have the capability of putting your camera on if you would like. If not, you can have it off. We also have the option to have your microphone muted and unmuted. Just remember during the presentation to please have it muted. At the end, if you'd like to ask any questions, you can unmute. And today you will learn from Allegra Velasquez about the importance of nutrition and physical activity and the important role they both play in health and women's health. And a little brief bio about Allegra. She works with the Miami-Dade Department of Health WIC and Nutrition Program. She is a registered dietitian working as a senior public health nutritionist at our Jackson WIC office. She has been working for the Miami-Dade Department of Health for 5 years. She enjoys being a registered dietitian and working in the area of community nutrition and public health because of the important role we play in the lives of vulnerable populations. It is rewarding to know that I can help improve the nutritional and lifestyle habits of families in our community. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Allegra. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Allegra Velasquez. I am a registered dietitian. I work with the Miami-Dade County WIC and Nutrition Program, part of the Department of Health. And today I will be talking about nutrition and physical activity for healthy lifestyles and also tying in women's health. So thank you. Next slide, please. So the theme of this presentation is healthy eating, including what we drink, as well as physical activity with women's health in mind when we talk about how these factors, which are just two of many factors that contribute to a healthy lifestyle. And I will be talking about, in general, about the balanced eating pattern, going over the different food groups and examples of each, talking about the recommended amounts for each food group, and also discussing healthy fats and fiber-rich foods for heart health and other benefits as well, which I will be highlighting why this is especially important for women's health. And I think it's important to know that nutrition and physical activity, they do go hand in hand, which is why I will be reviewing why physical activity is important and just showing practical ways of how we can be more active in our daily lives as well as in the workplace. Next slide, please. So in terms of women's health, we do have different needs. Now, this will be specific to nutrition. So our calorie needs are different. Some vitamins and minerals are particularly important during reproductive health. Our nutrition is different as far as pregnancy, breastfeeding, menopause. The needs will be different. And women are more likely to have health problems related to nutrition. And some of these conditions, they can affect women primarily or more severely. So just to give an example, in the US, women are at a higher risk of breast cancer versus men. Other examples like heart-related issues, osteoarthritis, bone health issues, as well as mental health and stress, just to name a few. And I do want to highlight this information as far as the overweight and obesity data in Miami-Dade among women, just because being overweight or obese can affect one's quality of life and put women at risk for developing many of these diseases that I mentioned. And having a healthy weight can help to prevent and control these diseases. So, according to the CDC, the leading death among women are heart disease, cancer, and chronic lower respiratory diseases. So, this is why our lifestyle is really important. So, healthy eating and engaging in regular activity can help lower the risk of these diseases. Next slide, please. Now, I briefly want to talk about the importance of nutrition and physical activity because it does play a role in how a person can develop these conditions. So, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer, which some of these are the leading causes of death among women, nutrition and physical activity does play a role. And a lot of these diseases are diet related and they are continuing to rise. So, it is related to our lifestyle behaviors and our lifestyle choices. So, about half of all American adults have one or more preventable diseases, and many of these diseases, once again, are related to poor quality eating patterns as well as just not being active enough. Next slide, please. Nutrition is just one part of the foundation of health, and it is important because your food choices can affect your health, and what you eat is an important part of an overall healthy lifestyle. So, combined with physical activity and other factors, these pillars of health can help not only your body, not only physically, but also mentally. And one's eating habits can help reach and maintain a healthy weight, which then reduces your risk of chronic diseases and also just promote overall good health. Next slide, please. Now, I think it's important to go over the healthy eating basics. So, focusing on a variety of foods, nutrient dense foods from within all the different food groups, and also eating these foods in their recommended amounts, which I will be discussing those general recommendations, and then limiting and cutting back on certain foods. So, for example, cutting back on processed meats like deli meats, sausage, hot dog, ham, bacon. Also, cutting back on foods with added sugars that contribute excess calories, like from sweetened drinks and desserts, and also refined grains. So, just cutting back on that. So, those would be like your white flour, your white bread, white rice, and also cutting back on the saturated fats, which are unhealthy fats, and we will be discussing that a little bit later. So I really like this picture because it's a good example of what a balanced meal looks like. So you have your source of protein, which is the egg. You have your non-starchy vegetables, which is the broccoli and the tomato, as well as the whole grains, which in this picture is the whole grain toast. And then you have your healthy fat, which is the avocado. Next slide, please. So if you're looking to eat more healthy, you're probably wondering like, what is the best way to do this? So a lot of the information out there, as far as these popular diets, they are recommending that you restrict or eliminate certain foods. So cutting back on sugar or cutting back on carbohydrates while restricting other foods like fat. So there is a lot of information out there about nutrition. Unfortunately, it can be misleading and you can become confused with all these different type of fad diets. So these quick fixes that tell you to eliminate or restrict foods, skip meals or snacks, and that are too strict, they're not sustainable for the long term. And sometimes they do suggest that you do things that are not healthy for you. So no matter what the fad diet is in that moment, a balanced eating pattern of vegetables and fruits, whole grains, healthy fats, and lean protein is going to be the best choice. Next slide, please. So before I begin going through what a healthy, balanced eating pattern looks like, I want to note that these amounts that are needed are different for everyone based on the age, the sex, level of physical activity. So these recommendations, they are based on the general population, but like I mentioned before, the needs for women will be different based on the stage of life. So just taking that into account. So this group is the vegetables. So vegetables, they do contribute a lot of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber. So what you want to do is just eat a variety of foods with different colors to get the full range of the nutrients. And the different groups of vegetables, they are based on their nutrient content. So just to kind of give you an idea, you have your dark green vegetables, you have starchy vegetables, red and orange vegetables, beans and peas, which also go into the protein group. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. And what each person needs in general is about 1 to 3 cups a day. So this picture shows what 1 cup of raw or cooked vegetables, so about the size of your fist, that's about a cup, or 2 cups of raw leafy greens is considered 1 cup. So that would be about 2 fists or about the palm of your hand, just to kind of get an idea of what a cup of vegetables look like. So just a tip that I have, what I recommend is if you're not used to measuring food, and I'm not saying that you have to measure your food every time you eat, but maybe do it a few times if you have measuring cups or if you need to buy measuring cups. That's just to get an idea of what a cup looks like or half a cup looks like. So you can use your hand as a guide, but also maybe measuring it out a few times. And this can be applied to all the different food groups. Next slide, please. Next, we have fruits as part of a healthy, balanced eating pattern. And fruits, just like vegetables, they have their health benefits, such as the vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, fiber as well. It can be part of a healthy snack or a tasty dessert. Fruits do have sugar, but it is natural sugar, so they won't spike up your blood sugar when paired with other foods. So this is important if you have diabetes, for example. You want to consult with your doctor and maybe be referred to a registered dietitian or a certified diabetes educator who can advise you about how much to eat and when. So the amount of fruit per day varies per person and their needs. So about, in general, 1 to 2 cups a day, so a little bit more than vegetables. So just to get an idea of what's considered 1 cup. So about a scooped hand, in the picture you see the scooped hand, so that's about 1 cup of fruit, or 100% fruit juice also is considered 1 cup, or half a cup of dried fruit. So when you're choosing fruits, you want to try to choose fruits more in its whole form. Whole fruits also include fresh, canned, frozen, and dried. So if you're buying, let's say, canned fruits, maybe going for ones that are lower in added sugar. And fruit juice can be a part of your eating pattern, but it is lower in fiber and it can contribute some excess calories. So if you are going to be drinking juice, just make sure it's 100% fruit juice and without added sugar. So just making sure that you are reading the food label. Next slide, please. Next, we have grains, and in the grain group, there's a variety of foods. There's a lot of options. So you have your bread, your pasta, your cereals, grits, tortillas, other foods like popcorn, rice, oatmeal are all part of the grain group. Now, in the grain group, there are two different types. So you have two groups. You have your whole grains and your refined grains. So the whole grain has the whole grain kernel, and some examples of those would be like whole wheat flour, bulgur, oatmeal, brown rice. So just some examples of whole grains. And then you have your refined grains. So in that process, they're removing some of the key parts. So you're removing fiber, removing iron and vitamins. So that's why the recommendation for a healthy, balanced eating pattern would be to eat more grains. Now, well, the amount for each person, once again, it varies. So it could be between 3 and 8 ounce equivalents. And for example, if you're engaging in more activity, if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, you will be on the higher end of those needs for the grains. And I think it's important to note that most Americans do meet the amount that we need for the grains. We're just not choosing the whole grain, so just choosing more of the whole grains. And in general, what 1 ounce equivalent looks like is about one slice of bread, so the palm of the hand that you see in the picture, 1 cup of cereal, or a half a cup of cooked rice, cooked pasta, or cooked cereal. So that's where, getting those measuring cups out, just for in the beginning, just to kind of get an idea of what does that amount look like. Next slide, please. So for protein, there is a variety as well, just like the grains. So you have your meat, your poultry, you have seafood, beans, peas, eggs, soy products, nuts, and seeds, all part of the protein group, as well as beans and peas, which kind of overlap in the vegetable and the protein group. And then for vegetarian options, you have your beans and peas, soy products, nuts, and seeds. So for the needs, as far as what each person needs, is about 2 to 6.5 ounce equivalent per day. So once again, if you're more physically active, you're probably going to need more protein, because these recommendations, the 2 to 6.5 ounces, is for people who get less than 30 minutes a day of physical activity. So you're going to be more on the lower end if you're more sedentary as far as your protein needs. So if you're more active, you're pregnant, breastfeeding, older adults, they are going to need more protein. And most Americans do get enough. We do consume enough from this group, but to make it more of a healthy eating, you want to go more for more leaner options, so less fat and more of a varied selection to get the most out of the nutrients and the benefits that these different proteins have to offer. Now, to give you an idea of what those equivalents look like, so for a 1 ounce equivalent, you have a 1/4 cup of cooked beans, so maybe measuring that out just to get an idea. 1 egg is considered 1 ounce. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is considered 1 ounce, so about the size of your thumb. And I would definitely recommend measuring that out, because what we think is a tablespoon may not be what it actually is. So, measuring that out in the beginning just to get an idea. And then for nuts and seeds, about half an ounce. So, once again, maybe measuring that out. And for protein, like let's say meat, poultry, or fish, you want it to be about the size of your palm. That's about 3 to 4 ounces. So in your meals, just making sure you have the adequate amount of protein. Next slide, please. Now, the dairy group is particularly important because of the vitamins and minerals that it has. So, for example, for calcium in dairy, it helps building and maintaining healthy bones, teeth, muscle mass. So, to get the most out of these foods, the most nutrients, but also looking at the fat and the calories, you want to go more for low fat options. And then there are plant-based options for those who prefer more plant-based, or maybe have a sensitivity or intolerance to dairy. So there are plant-based beverages and foods that are fortified with calcium. Now, if you're going more for those, just make sure that you get the unsweetened varieties. And the amount of dairy you need does depend on your age. So, and also the lifespan for women. So, pregnancy, breastfeeding, older women, they will need more calcium. And what each person needs per day is about 2 to 3 cups or servings per day. So, what counts as a serving is about 1 glass of milk or milk alternative. So, that could be soy milk or almond milk, and that would be about 8 ounces, is about equivalent to a cup. So that fist in the middle picture, standing upright, that's about a cup more or less. And then 1 cup of yogurt is one serving, 1.5 ounces of cheese, so about the size of your pointer finger, and then 2 cups of cottage cheese is about one serving. Next slide, please. Now, I included information about fats. I want to talk about the different type of fats because the data shows that heart-related issues are a part of the leading causes of death among women, and I think it's important to discuss the different type of fats because it is important in general, but it's especially important for heart health. And one of the key components of following a heart healthy diet and just a healthy diet in general is to be aware of the different type of fats and how to limit them or to avoid them. So there are different type of fats. You have your trans fats, your saturated fats, which are your unhealthy fats, and then the unsaturated fats, which are the healthy fats. So the current recommendations say to avoid the trans fats or partially hydrogenated oil. So just looking for those words when you're looking at the food label. And trans fats typically are found in baked goods and fried foods. So eating a significant amount of those type of fats, the unhealthy fats, can increase your risk for heart disease. And then foods high in saturated fats are commonly found in, for example, bacon, sausages, fatty meats, so those meats with higher fat content, butter, ice cream, full fat dairy products. So the recommendation would be to replace the saturated fats, so the unhealthy fats, with healthier fats, which are your unsaturated fats. And those foods that are considered healthy fats would be your olive oil, canola oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and also omega-3 fatty acids are a special type of fat, and they're found in fatty fish such as salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, and they're also found in nuts and seeds as well. So walnuts and flax seeds also have the omega-3 fatty acids. Next slide, please. And I also want to talk about fiber in terms of heart health and also the other benefits that fiber has. So it does have many health benefits. It's good for heart health because it can help reduce cholesterol. It's also good for gut health and digestive issues such as constipation. It's helpful with satiety and weight management as well because the way fiber works is that it slows the speed at which the food passes from the stomach through your digestive system. So this can help you feel full longer. This process is also helpful for diabetes because of the effect that it has on glucose control. So the fact that it's moving the food slowly through the digestive system also helps with reducing the blood sugar levels after meals. So some examples of foods that contain the fiber: fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts and seeds, whole grains. So just to kind of give you some tips of how you can increase the fiber is with smoothies, maybe adding some oats. You can add oats to bread or baked goods if you're into baking. So just adding oats to get more fiber. And then maybe putting beans in a salad or soup, adding vegetables to a sandwich or a pasta dish to stir fry. You can also blend fruit into a smoothie, add nuts, add seeds, oatmeal, so that's increasing fiber that way. Adding fruit to cereal, oatmeal, pancakes, waffles, desserts. So, limiting some of those foods, but still enjoying them, but also adding some benefits of the fiber from fruits. And you can also make like a quick snack with trail mix. So dried fruit, nuts, seeds, cereal, those are all foods high in fiber. And when you're increasing your fiber intake, if your intake is not that high, you just want to make sure that you do drink plenty of water, and you want to do it gradually, just so that way your body can get used to it. Next slide, please. So as part of a healthy eating pattern, you also have to look at your beverage choices, and they're just as important as your food choices. So drinking sugary beverages like soda or juice, they can contribute some excess calories and added sugar. So instead, just go for water. And I just want to talk a little bit about why hydration is important. So it's important to prevent dehydration, for your joint health, getting rid of waste through your urine, sweat, bowel movements, also for constipation, cooling your body from the inside out, good for your controlling your heart rate, as well as for muscle function. So your fluid needs are different. depending on your age, your gender, activity level, and this influence how much your body needs. So women who are pregnant and are breastfeeding, they are going to need more fluids. Those who are more active, you are going to need more fluids. If you live or you work in hot conditions, more fluids. If you are an older, older women also need more fluids. And I think it's important that you limit, juices and sodas, but if that's something that you want to drink, just cut back. And just remember to look at serving size, maybe getting a smaller cup or a smaller can. That way you can still enjoy it, but you're not having so many calories and so much sugar from that. And if you are eating out, let's say maybe going for a smaller size instead of the large or super sized option. Next slide, please. Now, physical activity is important because it can help lower the risk of many of these diseases that impact women, and it can help with complications of pregnancy, as well as better sleep, improving your mental health, um, helping with symptoms of depression, anxiety, just better quality of life and overall well-being. And for older women, important, it's helpful for better bone health and balance. So the recommendations for physical activity are about 150 minutes per week, about 2.5 hours of moderate intensity physical activity. So that would be walking briskly or just general gardening, swimming, things like that. And then for vigorous activity, it's about 75 minutes a week. So that would be jogging, running, bicycling, doing a sport. And the evidence shows that physical activity, it can help maintain a healthy weight, help prevent excessive weight gain, and in combination with what you're eating, lose weight and maintain a healthy weight. And I think it's important that you choose something that you enjoy and just do a variety of activities, which we'll talk about now to give you some ideas. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share some ideas of physical activity that are practical. So for the working person, a busy person, for moms, etc. So using like a small increment approach. So that's good for busy people. So if you don't have 30 minutes at a time, breaking it up. So 10 minutes throughout the day to reach your goals, and then mixing it up, doing something that you like. So maybe one day taking a swim, the next day doing yoga, which physical activity is good for your physical and your mental health. So that's an idea, as well as maybe going to the gym, but because of the pandemic, it might be a little bit difficult. But at home, getting resistance bands, some dumbbells, doing body weight. So those are some ideas of how to mix it up throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, maybe doing something like gardening or mowing the lawn. So all that counts as physical activity. And also, I think great resources are like YouTube videos, social media, community programs. There's a lot of free resources or low cost resources. I know through the Department of Health, we have resources through the local hospitals, Baptist, University of Miami. There's a lot of community programs. And just finding different ways to move. So going for a walk, going for a jog, riding your bike. If you have an infant or a toddler, taking a walk outside in the stroller, just getting some fresh air. If you are watching TV, during commercial breaks, taking that time to do some type of activity, just get moving. If you're watching a movie, maybe walking in place, or if you have a treadmill, walk on the treadmill, watch a movie, watch a video on the Stairmaster. So those are just some ideas to pass the time, but then you're being active. And I think it's important that you find support as well. So maybe joining a group or playing a group sport. Once again, going for an exercise class or some activity in the community, and recruiting your family members and your friends for support. And something that I just want to highlight, taking advantage of the outdoors. I mean, we live in Miami, so we have that advantage that we have. I know it's really hot, but we have that advantage of being able to be outdoors for most of the year. And actually, natural sunlight is good for quality of sleep. So you're getting the physical activity component. It's helping with your sleep as well, getting good quality of sleep because we do get a lot of artificial light. So just getting more natural light. So some ideas would be maybe going to a national park like the Everglades. So you're being active, but you're also being outdoors. Maybe going to a botanical garden. I know that Fairchild. I know there's one in Miami Beach. So just looking into that, and then kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding. So once again, taking advantage of the outdoors and just being active. Next slide, please. Now, we spend a lot of time at work, and some of us are sedentary. So, I wanted to give some ideas of how we can incorporate physical activity at work. So, using that same concept of small increments throughout the day. So, just to give you an example, a personal example, because of the pandemic, I am teleworking. So, I'm trying to incorporate more physical activity that maybe I didn't do before while being physically at work. So, just getting up a little bit before I need to check in at work. So just getting up, going for a walk during lunchtime, eating and then setting some time apart to walk, and then after work as well. And then talking about support, I do with my friends. We do a video call. So that's an idea, and just be ready anytime. So I guess this would be more if you're physically at work, just being ready with comfortable clothes, walking shoes or running shoes. You can keep them in the car at the office. So just being ready anytime to be active, and you can take a walk around the parking lot. So that's another idea. And then you can maybe start a group at work, a wellness or exercise group. Start a walking group, maybe start a team sport with your colleagues. So that's another example. And then this picture is actually a picture from one of our monthly meetings. So we try to incorporate some physical activity component as well as a team building. So this was like a little obstacle course. So, we try to incorporate physical activity in our meetings as well. And then maybe you could do like a walking meeting. So those are just some ideas of being more active at work. Next slide, please. So to conclude the presentation, what I want to leave off with is that it's important to focus on what works for you. So these are general recommendations kind of tailored to women's health, but you want to focus on what works for you, starting with small goals. Maybe some of these things that we talked about today, maybe it was a little bit overwhelming, or you have to find something that's realistic to you, and then make those small changes and small goals and go from there, because gradual change is more sustainable. And then you can tailor the topics that we talked about today, the nutrition and physical activity, to your own lifestyle and your individual goals and needs. So to kind of just go over what we talked about, starting off with women's health in general, that women have different needs throughout the lifespan. These diseases that we mentioned, they do affect women differently. And I talked about, or I highlighted the information about overweight and obesity in Miami, just to show how important it is that making these lifestyle changes with healthy eating, physical activity, and other lifestyle factors is really important. And physical activity and nutrition affects your health, not only physically and mentally, just overall. So I hope that you feel more confident in how to consume a balanced diet, as well as incorporating healthy fats and foods with fiber, and just knowing about the different food groups and how to meet your own needs. And remember that your choice of beverage is important. So water should be the beverage of choice. And for physical activity, I believe that the main takeaway from this is that you just want to move more, be more active regularly, and find something that you enjoy. Perhaps maybe going in a group or finding a partner to help with motivation, and trying to move more at work, especially for those that are more sedentary, trying to incorporate more physical activity in events and meetings as well. Next slide, please. So this concludes the presentation. I'm open to questions and thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Allegra, for that very insightful presentation and learning about the balanced eating and physical activity as it relates to women's health and also the overall health of somebody. And so now I will pass it on to Robert, who will go ahead and facilitate the Q&A discussion. And as a reminder, you guys have the opportunity to share any questions you have in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, Allegra, for that great presentation. We really appreciate it. Our first question is this. Could you discuss weight loss and the importance of nutrition while breastfeeding?
Yeah, so that's a big topic. I feel like that's a topic that it has a lot of components and information that goes with that. But just to kind of briefly talk about it, so with breastfeeding, you do burn a lot of calories, about 500 calories per day. So it's like physical activity. So your needs do increase when you are breastfeeding, as far as your calorie needs, your nutrient needs, in general. So with some women, they do see weight loss with breastfeeding, since you are burning a lot of calories, but you need to replace those calories that you're burning through breastfeeding with the healthy eating, making sure you are getting enough fluids, taking your prenatal vitamins. So as long as you're consuming a healthy, balanced diet, sticking to the recommended amounts, being mindful of the portion sizes and the amounts of the foods that you're eating, and like I said, I don't want to say to limit or completely cut out certain foods, but just limiting foods like the sugary beverages, the saturated fats, unhealthy fats, things like that. So I would say that's the more general approach to that question.
Thank you. Our next question, could you share any ideas and tips on how to stay physically fit and also to incorporate proper nutrition into busy schedules in order to make it a habit? I know you touched on this earlier, but just wondered if you had any more you could say about this.
Well, I think the tips that I mentioned, information that I talked about, I tried to gear it more towards something more practical. So I think, at least for me, what helps for me, working, being busy, I think what helps is that the small increments throughout the day. So if you don't have a lot of time allotted for, 30 minutes or an hour a day, it's the same thing if you just divide it among the day or throughout the week. It doesn't have to be all in one day. The recommendations are 150 minutes a week for moderate physical activity, or vigorous activity 75 minutes a week. So just spreading it out throughout the week. And then sometimes we are doing things that are considered activity, but we may not know it. So for example, if you have to take a call, let's say for a meeting or whatnot, and it's practical for you or realistic for you maybe to go walk, that's an option. If you're watching TV, if you're watching something on your phone, instead of sitting down, maybe you could walk in place, or if you have access to a stationary bike or a treadmill, that's an option. So sometimes, there's ways that we can kind of sneak it in, and just to make sure that we are more consistently physically active.
Great, thank you. So I see we have a question in the chat box. We're just wondering if you could speak on, I believe this is Lazo tea or coffee, and the impact that has on someone's diet. I wonder if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, so, well, since we're talking about women's health, as far as like breastfeeding and pregnancy, when it comes to caffeine, you can have caffeine. It's just not an excessive amount of caffeine. So about about 12 ounces a day is the recommended amount. So a regular cup is about 8 ounces, so a little bit more than that. And some people, they add things to it, like let's say milk and whatnot. So you might not even be consuming that much caffeine. That's more like if it's just pure black coffee. Some teas, they do have caffeine, so you just have to watch out for that. And I've seen that sometimes the box will compare it to other things that have caffeine, so it will tell you the caffeine content. So with that population, with like breastfeeding and pregnancy, caffeine is okay. In general, consuming caffeine can be part of an eating pattern. You just want to be careful, like how I mentioned in the presentation about sleep. That's a topic that I'm really interested in. You just have to be careful when you consume caffeine, not to consume it so close to when you're going to bed, because that can affect your quality of sleep. So if you are going to have caffeine, just make sure it's earlier in the day, in the morning time, not so close to when you're going to sleep, like within a 4 hour period of when you're going to sleep. But you can fit caffeine, like I said, into a balanced eating pattern. It's just the amount that you're consuming. And if you're concerned about the amount of caffeine that you're consuming, let's say, just to give an idea, let's say you're consuming 3 times a day different drinks that have caffeine, maybe cutting back on that. So that's where the individualized approach comes in, and just being realistic about what works for you. So that's my take on that.
Great, thank you. Our next question is a two-parter. So I'll answer, or I'll ask both parts of the question, and I don't know if you want to answer one after the other, or maybe incorporate
Okay.
both. But yeah, let me
Yeah.
go. So those who have chronic fatigue and joint muscle pain, they're wondering how they can exercise to improve their health. And the second part, what supplements or food can they include in their daily diet?
So for the first part of the question, I would say that maybe that's not my scope of practice. Um, as far as nutrition, being a registered dietitian, we do talk about physical activity in general. So that's why for the presentation, I wanted to talk about why it's important in combination with healthy eating and just giving some general ideas. But as far as specifics, that's not my area. So maybe speaking to your doctor and seeing if they can refer you to someone, um, maybe looking at videos of a professional that works in that area, maybe on social media, online. Like I mentioned in the presentation, there's a lot of information out there about nutrition and all different topics, and sometimes this information can be misleading. So when you are reading information, look at where it's coming from, who wrote the article. So I would recommend that, speaking to your medical professional, seeing who they can refer you to, and then if you want to start researching, on your own, just looking at credible resources and looking up professionals that work in that area. And then as far as supplements, um, we all in terms of nutrition and being a registered dietitian, we always go for foods first. So the reason why I wanted to discuss a healthy eating pattern and talking about the basics of nutrition is because you can meet your needs through nutrition. Now, once again, everybody's different. If you have a certain condition, maybe your needs are increased, or, in terms of women in the different life stages, if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, your needs will increase. So you may need to add a supplement. Let's say you do lab work and something comes out low, you might need to supplement it in addition to what you're already eating. So if you're consuming a balanced diet from all the different food groups, so your whole grains, your fruits, your vegetables, just to reiterate, the protein, your calcium and dairy sources, healthy fats. If you're consuming that on a consistent basis, you should be meeting the needs that you need, that your body needs.
Perfect, thank you. So this next question is, are supplements or vitamins necessary? And also, what are the main vitamins found in certain foods that women need to promote good health?
Okay, so I kind of talked about that in the previous question. So once again, if you're consuming a healthy, balanced diet from all the food groups, not eliminating different foods or restricting yourself, then you should be meeting your needs. But once again, if you're breastfeeding, pregnant, if you're looking to get pregnant, a prenatal would be good because your body needs extra, for example, folic acid, extra iron, extra calcium. So you have to make sure you are consuming a balanced diet, but supplementing with that prenatal or multivitamin as well. If you read the ingredients, sometimes the multivitamins are similar to the prenatal. So taking that. And if you feel like you're not consuming a balanced diet, then maybe you would need a multivitamin. And if you do go to your healthcare provider and you do lab work regularly and you see that maybe you're deficient in something, then once again you might need a supplement. So as far as women's health, I think it depends on your life stage. So I touched on the breastfeeding and pregnancy. So you might need some extra vitamins and minerals there. Sometimes women suffer from iron deficiency anemia. So if you're not meeting your needs through what you eat, you might need an iron supplement depending on what your lab work shows. Calcium, later on in life, also with pregnancy and breastfeeding, your calcium needs are increased. So if you're not meeting your needs through what you eat, you might need a supplement. But once again, the approach is always food first. So always try to have a healthy, balanced diet, eating from all the different food groups, because you're going to get more benefits from eating whole foods. So you're going to get your vitamins and minerals, fiber, antioxidants, all the different components of eating whole foods versus a supplement. But of course, there is a time when a supplement may be needed, but that conversation would be more with the doctor as well, what type of supplements you may need.
Thank you so much, Allegra.
You're welcome.
Well, that is all the questions I'm seeing in the chat box. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Candace.
Thank you both so much for that insightful discussion. And so now I will just share with you all that have joined us. As a reminder, we're going to be sharing an evaluation later today. So if you can all please complete that, we would love to hear from you and all of your thoughts for future events. And lastly, the Office of Community Health and Planning, we wanted to share our upcoming next two webinars on Friday, September 25th from 2 to 3 p.m. We'll have tobacco and pregnancy. What do you need to know? This webinar will be taking place. So join us for that. And then also on Wednesday, September 30th at 10 a.m., we will have a presentation on cholesterol basics. And then lastly, on Friday, October 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., please join us for the Health Equity in 2020. What does this mean and why does it matter in the age of COVID-19, this virtual event? And so you can all check out these events on our consortium calendar at healthymiamidade.org. And we thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.